I would now like to introduce our two speakers for the day. Our first speaker is Mr. Shachindra Nath. Mr. Nath took on the role of an entrepreneur by acquiring control of a listed NBFC called Chokhani Securities Limited in 2018 and is now the executive chairman and managing director of Ugrow Capital, a tech-enabled small business lending platform. Prior to embarking upon his entrepreneurial journey at Ugrow Capital, Mr. Nath has been influential in setting up insurance companies, global asset management businesses, capital markets, and lending institutions. Throughout his illustrious career, he has been instrumental in building two insurance companies, a large asset management company, and an NBFC. Some of his biggest achievements include establishing new business verticals alongside foraying in successful joint ventures and partnerships for the group. He is a qualified lawyer and a university rank holder from the Banaras Hindu University and is known to be a great motivator and a hands-on leader who trusts his instincts. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Nath. Our second speaker is Mr. Rahul Chandar. He has over 29 years of experience in banking, advisory, and investments. He is an ex-executive director and member of boards of Rabo India Finance and Rabo India Securities, 100% subsidiaries of Rabobank, Netherlands. He was previously with DEG, the German investment and development company, IL&FS Investment Advisors, and Lazard Credit Capital. He is currently a co-founder, managing director, and CEO of Livfin, a tech-enabled supply chain finance-focused NBFC. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Rahul, as well. So, as I said, today's discussion is all about SME empowerment and how we can help them through our own models, and we can empower them in the whole run. So firstly, I would just like to say that, the negative impact of COVID-19, it has been so much. This crisis on human life and the economy, this impact has been unprecedented. And this crisis has forced firms across industries, especially these SMEs, to innovate and transform significantly to survive and overcome the challenges. What do you think has been the impact of COVID-19 on SMEs in India? And through this, I would just like you to share the negatives as well as the positives.
Yeah. So, as you know, and this I say from the perspective of a lending institution which we created in 2018, where the core mission is to solve the unsolved, which is the credit problem for MSMEs in India. As we all know that MSMEs today contribute 29% of the Indian economy. It is projected to grow to 50%, but only 10% of MSME have access to credit, and that has typically been a challenge historically, purely because of the non-homogeneous nature of MSMEs in India. Because every small business differ from the other business. Lending institution and credit or the capital is the one of the core bread and butter through which they thrive, survive, and grow. So this has been a very large problem, and our initiative was a small effort in solving that problem. But during the crisis, actually that has become more severe, right? Because think of in a normalized situation when the SMEs were not having access to the credit, in this time of disruption, wherein the hardest hit segment of the market is the small businesses, and the need of the capital has got more and profounded. This problem is becoming worse more and more. So beside other disruption, I think so the sustainability of SMEs in India at this point of time is highly dependent upon timely availability of cash and credit in any form and shape. And that all we have to see how does that evolve.
I want to add on from where Mr. Nath left it. Ugrow looks at slightly larger sizes than what Livfin looks at. We look at largely the MSMEs, right? Not so much the SMEs. I think the problem, other than lack of capital, which is definitely there, mentally just picture a person who owns a shop, right? Now, in the lockdown period, in some cases it's still going on. If you've been locked down for about 2.5, 3 months, you're already sitting on stock. You have a loss of income because you haven't been able to sell anything. You still have some expenses. You might have cut down some, but you still have some expenses. You might have stock getting bad, so that's a loss there also. So I think the problems are many. The government has come out with some schemes trying to help, but will that really translate into giving them the liquidity that they need? On top of that, they owed money to banks or NBFCs like ours, where interest is compounding, right? So it's a cost that is building up. So that's a huge problem. Some sectors are going to have a much bigger problem than others. Small eateries, hospitality, these are going to be really hit. But I think on the positive side, and you can only look forward from something like this, I think there will be a change in strategy. I think strategy means a lot to a lot of people. For these small shop owners, the strategy is a very different, this thing. They will focus more and more on the relationships that they have with either their wholesalers or if they are directly dealing with manufacturers. I think those relationships will develop much more. They will understand and they will move on to more digitized form of credit, which is something that had started a few years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But I think that the thrust will really start coming now. Because if you're not able to access your bank and not able to get a check out or go and deposit cash or whatever, but you do it digitally, you can still do it sitting at home. I think that realization will also come to them. Language, I don't think, is a barrier when it comes to digitalization. You have enough tools to manage that. So I think there are definitely negatives that we are seeing today, but I think this will improve and change the way some of the positives will also start coming in.
Right. So among the many challenges that you mentioned, what would you say are the main challenges that we are seeing right now and we are likely to see in the coming months as well?
So I can tell you that challenges which we see, right? So one, as I said in my opening remarks, the biggest challenge as what Mr. Rahul Chandra also said, that if there was a business which was operating and now is shut down for 4 months, most of the small businesses operate in a thin margin of 10 to 12%, right, of the gross revenue, which means that the entire years of the margin have already been evaporated, right? And the business has not come to the level of normalcy and the expenses are still running. The only way to get support is if the business is viable, to take more credit, which means that the incremental cost or some form of family savings or other support system. With respect to the incremental credit, the problem is that there is a general risk aversion to providing the credit. And we have seen it in multi formats. Large banks are not providing, NBFCs are not providing. And the reason for that is that people just not being able to understand what would be right going forward. And to some extent also, it's also a self-reflection. So we did an exercise of so it's very highly specialized, segment focused, digital technology driven lending platform. So we do only 8 sector, right? Within the 8 sector, for example, we do education, healthcare, food processing, hospitality, light engineering, auto component, electrical equipment manufacturing. Now in hospitality, which I call self-reflection, we out of our X number of customer, if say 10% or 5% belong to hospitality, and we spoke and digitally reached out to them, 80 to 85% of those hospitality small businesses believed that the only 3 to 4 months are challenging, and after that they will come back to normalcy, right? And that's why they were only looking for a more credit right now, but they did not had this self introspection that actually the pain or the problem for them must be much longer. So what we call shrink, sustain, and then think of growth, that mindset had not come. So unless small businesses self-reflect that how much of cost, how much of existing business would actually shrink, and they have to reset to the reality of the world, they will land up in much bigger trouble, right? So it is easy, even if there is government and there is so much of demand, that why government is not handing over the cash to small businesses like it has happened in a few other markets. The primary reason for that is that unless the small businesses don't self-evaluate that whether taking more incremental credit is helpful or it is more harmful for them, this problem would continue to be much bigger. So I think so a self-reflection for small businesses of accepting the hard reality, absorbing it, and then resetting their business is something the hour of the need.
Absolutely. Mr. Rahul, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think Mr. Nath has, captured very well the fact of what the businesses need to do. But I would like to touch on the other side in terms of what a lending institution needs to do. Typically, you would go and meet the borrower before you lend. That's not possible right now, right? You
Yeah.
can't travel. Uh, Documentation is a problem when you talk about small borrowers. Lots of places, even couriers are not going. So that is a genuine problem. We have this thing in India where if you're giving a loan, you take some sort of a security check. And today, that is not possible. The guy can't go to a bank. He can't get his checkbook. He can't do all that. There are so many issues that you see from a lender's perspective. It is not just that the lenders are not willing to lend. Even if you want to lend, how do you lend?
Yeah.
How do you assess credit? You can't just give credit to anybody because he says he needs it. You will, as a responsible lender, you will definitely assess the credit. How do you assess that credit? Very, very difficult. But I think partly UGRO and Lifin, definitely the way we do our assessments, we are doing unsecured lending to the MSMEs and SMEs. Our way of analysis is actually very different. We don't look at balance sheets. We look more at cash flows. A lot of that can be done digitally.
Yeah.
And we are doing that. And which is why in my first question also I said that the positive change that is going to come is that there will be more digitization. That will actually help in a better credit assessment of a borrower, of a small borrower, even from a remote location. So I think that is something also that's a challenge today, but I think it is setting the tone for what's going to happen going forward.
I would just add anecdotally a very, very small example, right? So as Rahul was saying that one of the key, lenders like to meet the customers, especially the traditional lender, before they lend, right? At UGRO, obviously, our front-end platform is completely digitized. We give an in-principle approval in flat 60 minutes through API integration, so on and so forth. And then after that, a credit underwriter goes and meet the customer. And we said that there is an opportunity now to digitize that process as well. And there is no need to go and meet customer. You can do it digitally, right? Now, what we call digital PD or personal discussion. Now, one of the key criteria or the need for that is to authenticate the person who we are speaking is the same person, who we are supposed to speak. Now, obviously, there is an infrastructure which is available. What is needed for that your mobile number should be linked to your Aadhaar, so that when we are calling through a video, we are sure of that it is the same person we are speaking to. We launched a program in July, and you would be amazed. There's small businesses which are, theoretically, this is not a very difficult thing. 76% of our customers' mobile number were not linked to their Aadhaar. And that's why before we actually could do digital PD, first is we have to educate to them that this is a basic need or a necessity. So these are small things which now SMEs have to think. It was very easy for you to send your runner, go to bank, deposit a check, get a checkbook, but all of that is possible today digitally, right? So they have to think of all of us have to think of a completely digital world, and can you achieve the same things by being just completely digital?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. So as all the restrictions begin to ease, organizations are assessing the impact on their transformation plans, and some are drastically scaling back while the others are absolutely accelerating. So as Mr. Nath said, that organizations need to reset. But how do we reset? You can share within your own organizations, how have you personally navigated the disruption to your timelines, the staffing issues, the potential budget issues that have arisen in this?
Yeah. So I think so it is different for different sets of people. I think so in non-bank finance sector, NBFC as a sector has been suffering as much as small businesses, right? So as a provider of credit, generally the liquidity available to the NBFCs have been really low. And that's why they have not been able to provide further credit to the market. They have been just managing their own challenges. Having said that, some of the new age our kind of platform who have access to capital and the liquidity, we have been using this time to what we call our mission 100% digital. So we were a hybrid business wherein a large part of our front end organization, which is data analytics, underwriting, reaching out to customer, onboarding, giving him in principle approval, were all digital. But we always believe that the conventional way of doing the underwriting is we have to combine and make it a hybrid. So after that, meeting the customer, looking his physical infrastructure, picking up the physical document, taking it, and then giving credit. And we said no, this is the time wherein we have to go 100% digital. So almost in small business lending, up to it, almost 90% of level of digitization we achieved. But having said that, it is a both side, right? I'll give you an example. Now loan documentation in India, every bank does it, or NBFC does it physically, while legal infrastructure allows you to do it digitally. But people don't do it because they think that, you know, it is not legally valid, it is not enforceable. We took a leap of faith and we said we would do it digital, right? But the underlying borrower also have to be ready to accept that, right? Have to have the digital signature infrastructure, so on and so forth. So I think so that's what the way we have been trying to reset. We have looked, you would be amazed, and I'm not a proponent of that it would be actually possible. We did this an exercise that actually, if this be the life forever, how many of our people have to actually go to office? So you won't believe that we all used to go to office, sit there and do work, but last 5 months we have been working largely sitting at one place and from home, and there's no disruption we have seen that we can't function. We realize that doing an exercise that 90% of our people actually don't need to come to an office, right? They can, that may, from a psychological perspective, that may not be right thing to do because you need to go to an office, meet people and all that. But purely from a work perspective, that was possible, I think so. So we have been trying to retune the organization. We think so that, you know, post COVID, as a lending institution, our efficiency, our the volume which we can generate, and the reach which we can create through digital medium would be far superior and higher. The number of personal meeting which I have done in last 5 months, number of webinars like this I have done in last 5 months, I have never done that in last 5 years actually. So I think so that these are the positives, and this is the way the organization should think. Whether you are a small business or whether you're as 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 of today in the morning we were discussing, right? We do business through intermediations, right? Which there are a lot of grow partners which are DSAs, and we are now expanding that network. And one of the need wherein in some of the small towns, so like 150 kilometers from our main location, is still some of those DSAs which are also in SMEs, right? Saying that let's COVID be over and then let's meet face to face and then we will, you know, start and do the partnership. I think so that mindset has to change. You don't need to do that, right? You know, because even if you meet, because of the, you know, social distancing, you can't hug each other, right? Then what is the fun in going and meeting? Do this call and just finish the business.
So I have a very good example of that. So when Lifin started about 2.5 years ago, we took about a year to build the technology. We ran manually like any other institution did earlier that way. But when we launched our digital this thing, we first started with a web portal, and you know, invoices are going and all of that was going through a web portal to our borrowers, who, like I said, are largely, you know, MSMEs, so lots of small businesses, shops, where the promoter or the owner of the business typically is old school, which is still there. He probably doesn't know how to use a computer because he's never used it. He never grew up with a computer. So he has a, you know, a young kid in working with him who's actually the guy who's operating the computer. And the time it used to take for acceptance of every document and every invoice and everything was far too long. About 3 months later, we went and moved, 5 months later, we moved to also added the app. So now everybody had the app on their phone. And you should have seen the change that happened, because that guy who didn't know how to use a computer, he knew how to use his phone very well, a smartphone very well. He knew what an app was. He did everything there. And acceptance, it doesn't matter. He doesn't need to sit in his shop or a small office or wherever. He can be on a rickshaw going somewhere. He gets an alert that, you know, you need to approve this. And he's sitting on the phone and he's approving it over there. The turnaround time instantly changed. So that is the power. And I think people, some people have understood. A lot of people will understand in this segment But coming to our side, again, from an institutional lending institution perspective, we've also, like Mr. Nath said, you looked at how much have you digitized and you want to go more and more. We've also done that. We were already fully digital in our processes. But we've also used this time to actually go through every step of the process and see where we can become more efficient. Is this the right flow? Is the document or the application moving in the right way? Is it going a little sideways? Can we set it right? We've done, a lot of those changes, mainly to improve efficiency. Because again, correctly said by Mr. Nath, we were looking at expanding our office towards the end of this calendar. I don't think I need to expand my office for the next 2 years now, because not everybody will be able to come to office. You come in by rotation, so the same space can actually take more people. You're far more efficient, that way. The government has been talking about video KYC and all of that. So that is also starting, everybody's building up towards that. Documentation, we've always been doing it digitally. So we are very, very happy with that. And it gets Aadhaar e-signed. So we've gone through that process earlier because our borrowers were small and it didn't make sense to do that physical trip to go and get, because you already did it for a physical verification. Now you're going again for documentation is too much. So we've been doing it digitally. So that works very well in these times, and I think it will have a reset in the way everybody works going forward.
Absolutely, I agree. This lockdown period, I also think, has been the biggest learning curve for everyone. Like, everyone has actually increased their knowledge so much on all different things that they always thought that they would, but now they finally had the time to do it. They've realized so many things that, yeah, I absolutely agree with each and everything.
We all miss going to office, but what I don't miss is the 3 hours on the road, largely stationary, going through traffic. That is avoided. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely. So the next question would be, so what are the factors or the steps that you think which will help to revive the small business segment in India? Would you like to share some insights into what you are personally seeing and tips on how to navigate the business transformation through the next few months?
Uh, uh, so the way we are seeing for small businesses, that this is not, there is not a one single principle which can be applied, right? This is because it's a non-homogeneous sector, and we are seeing, given that we operate in these 8 sector and 75 subsector and different kind of geographies, we have found that the nuances of the geography, the sector, the subsector is very, very high, right? And people have to act very differently, right? So for example, MSME related to chemical industry, MSME related to and reason for chemical industry is because there is, cleaning material, sanitization material, the output of that is growing, right? Things like manufacturing sector, in some things, retail in non-metro, and this is also a shifting trend, right? Because first you saw the impact of COVID in major 3-4 metros, now it is percolating downwards, right? So what was supposed to be safe is now gradually becoming unsafe. So it is, I think so, it is by particular subsector, right? So give you an example, within the hospitality, right, the the banquet halls would suffer much longer period than and fine dining than the fast food, right? Because the fast foods and the people who were delivering 50% of their restaurant supplies through online platform at home, actually that has gone up to say 70-80%, and they are back to more or less normal curve. But banquet halls are complete shutdown, right? And would remain like that till at least March, right? So depending upon where you are, right, if you are a banquet hall in hospitality, you have to take a longer term pain view, and accordingly you have to be much more sharper, cut your costs, don't take more credit, because that would lead to more problem. But if you're in a fast food segment and you're now seeing revival, and that is a trend because people will still consume, then please take more credit and revive yourself faster. So I think so, yeah, this has to be kept in mind. Who am I, where I stand today, and how I would be, right? And take a very, very rational call basis that this is not a time to live just in hope. This is a time to be more realistic and sustain yourself today to build for, be alive for future, is our advice.
I think in this period, the other major factor that has come up is I think our clarity on what is essential and what is discretionary has changed completely.
Yeah.
We always thought medicines were essential, which they are, correct. But there are so many other things that have come up which are essential. Food delivery was never considered to be essential.
Yeah.
It is essential today, right? It is essential today. Pure delivery. A lot of people said we want to go and feel things before we buy them. Today, you don't have a choice, right? So Amazon or whatever is your this thing. So if you are already in those sectors which have been positively impacted, well, unfortunately, nobody wanted COVID to come in, but if it has come, you can't do anything about it. But if you are in a sector which is positively impacted because of COVID, this is the time to grow. But if it is because of negative, you had a negative impact, I think you need to reassess whether you want to continue with this model. What Mr. Nath was saying,
Yeah.
if you're a banquet hall, you need to. So a lot of reassessment has to come depending on the new definition of essential and discretionary.
Right.
And you need to restructure your whole thought process. Can you use the banquet hall? I'm just taking that same example and putting it. Can you use it for something else? Because you're not going to use it as a banquet hall for the next 6 months, for sure. After that, also, how many people will be allowed to come into a banquet hall for a wedding or a party is still unknown. People would they want to come is unknown. Can you use it for something else? Can you use it for maybe storage which doesn't damage the? Can you do something else with it? So use that. This is a perfect time to really start thinking out of the box.
Yeah.
If you can't make too much money, that's fine. Can you cover your expenses? That itself is a big step forward. I think those are the kind of transformations that have to come in, everywhere. And that's across the board, whether it is a lender or a borrower, large company, small company, everybody is doing that and has to do that.
Next question, following up on that itself, what do you think is the role of technology, training, and leaders of business in the accelerating recovery of such small businesses?
I can tell you as a lender's perspective, I think so technology has always been, at least in last decade or so, it has always been said this is important, this is essential, and we are all adopting it. I think so this shock has come as a force major when people are accelerating and adopting it, right? So even if at this point of time, if you can't take drastic step to use technology on every element of your business and think digital, I think so you won't survive, right? So because there will be some who would adopt it so sharply that they will then grow, and those who will not will be just left behind in the race, right? So as I said, in lending process, for example, there are 150 plus steps from a point of when a borrower comes and asking for a loan, and then when you finally hand over the money, and then for 5-6 years you wait for that money to come back, and large portion of that continues to be very physical, right? So this general belief that I have to go meet customers. So for example, we were having this internal debate wherein it was said that if I am lending to a very small business, which is, for example, a nursing home, right? I used to go look at each room, look at how many patients are there, look at how many people are sitting into the OPD, same as in the Kirana store, so on and so forth. We sat and said, but there has to be a way, right? If for God's sake for next 5 months we cannot do that, there has to be a way. We figured out that there are technologies wherein once the customer is logging through a video PD, integrating that with the GPS technology on a mobile phone, he can show us the entire premise, and we can record it, curate it, and basis that make the judgment call, right? So small things which can be done digitally and we don't think about it, is something which people have to start adopting. And especially the financial institution and lending institution, we have now the time, because we are not doing too much of business, this is the time to use it for transforming ourselves big time, right? So I keep saying the mission to 100% digital time is now. If we miss this window of crisis, we should not let this crisis go waste. We should use it to all our benefit.
Yeah. I think that to some extent has started. So as an NBFC, of course, you're constantly in the market also to borrow.
Yeah.
I don't remember a time before the lockdown happened where we had taken a single loan where, so many signatures, physical signatures, wet signatures. A lot of lenders still have that old concept where they want your, company seal to be put on to those things. Last 5 months, I think we borrowed a lot of money, and it's all been done sitting right here. You print it out, you take a signature, you scan it and send it, or you just put a digital signature and things are moving. So that has to grow. I just hope that it continues that way, and 4 months later, when hopefully things start opening up, banks don't go back to their old this thing and say, no, now we require your physical signatures. So I think that is true. Training is also important because I think this. No, I don't think any one of us has actually sat at home and worked for 5 months, but we've done it. But there is a psychological impact of that also. Trainings, definitely help now, whether you do it digitally or you get external people to do it, or you do. A training could just be, getting your teams together and just having a constant dialogue with them, explaining to them whatever. You have to replace that physical this thing with some other structured way of doing it, because there is a psychological impact of this that is going to happen, and that really is something that the leaders of the organizations have to bring on the table. There is no option.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So also, would you also like to share some helpful initiatives that have been undertaken by the corporates or the government to combat this crisis, especially for this area of SMEs?
So look, I think so. Further in my professional work experience of more than 25, 30 years, I think so for the first time we saw a very serious combined effort of the government and the central bank to provide liquidity, to make sure the financial system is stable, to do whatever is required, right? And there is always a debate whether it is good enough or not good enough, right? But the fact that what was the first priority? The government's first priority was that the financial institution, which is the backbone of the economy, who provides the capital and credit, should not just fell apart. So the whole focus was on providing the liquidity, and both Reserve Bank and Government of India did that job. Second was, I think so, rightfully so, government found that unless the MSMEs are not supported and provided some form of incremental capital and credit, they won't survive. And there were multiple initiatives which were so whether emergency credit line, whether the subordinated debt scheme. So all of this in Atmanirbhar Bharat and the 3 lakh crore of emergency credit line are massively good, and they have provided very significant amount of money and capital. So I think so the all-round government initiative have been fairly very robust. But as I said, that there are small businesses, when they are shut down for 5 to 6 months, beyond credit, they also need some form of an additional support, which is, and now we have the infrastructure or the methodology to do that, right? So for example, government has the GST database, and by sector and subsector, government can analyze that how much of turnover has fallen, right? And whether there is additional money can be given to support that turnover for, say, maintaining employability. And the question comes that how does government recover that money back? Anyone who is availing that, what is a subsidy or a grant, you simply increase the tax rate going forward for that small businesses, so that business, while when it earns, then it has the ability to pay back the government. So I think so some of these would happen, but I think so now is the time for small businesses wherein this additional support of providing some access capital support is also needed. But otherwise, government have been fairly active in providing the support.
I want to take a slightly more negative approach to that. The government has done what they had to do, but I think it's the lending institutions now which need to step up, because there is enough liquidity in the market. Is the liquidity reaching where it is supposed to reach? I don't remember when a prime minister had a meeting with banks and NBFCs
ever,
in the history of India, which he did yesterday. So I think it's very clear liquidity is available. The government and RBI have done what they had to do at that stage, and I'm reasonably sure there is more coming. But it also has to flow where it is supposed to go, and that is something which really needs to be looked at more carefully.
So, Mr. Nath, the next question is specifically for you. So, with Ugrow Capital being a tech-enabled small business lending platform, how has its offerings, what are the offerings of Ugrow Capital that will benefit the small businesses? I do know about the launch of your new initiative, Sanjeevani. So, would you like to tell us a bit more about that as well?
Yeah. So look, I think so. We had the distinct advantage of having raised more than 900 crore capital in 2018, and having liquidity in the balance sheet. And we were sitting and saying that, as Rahul was also saying, that lending institution has to do something about it. And we said that we have to step up and think a way to provide incremental credit outside the government support system, right? And so we drew the inspiration of Sanjeevani, which is, Hanuman brought for Lakshman, and which was like, well, for revival of and we said we have to figure out a way to revive. So the biggest challenge the credit institution is that how do you give credit to a business which is in a shutdown mode, right? Because how you normally don't do that. And we figured out a way that there is a data plus some form of a methodology we arrived. So what we did is that we, in our Sanjeevani program, the borrower is expected to give us his banking for last 12 months and his last 12 month of turnover data through GST. And our system bifurcate his banking and turnover pre-COVID and post-COVID. And if we see the borrower has an increase in turnover gradually happening in the post-COVID and post, unlocked down 1 and 2, then he's eligible to take more loan. Now, how much loan he can take, that metrics we created by looking at the sector and subsector in we operate, right? So if you are, if you are a chemical SME, we have an hypothesis that in 6 months time, you will be back to 100% normal. And basis your existing turnover increase ratio multiplied by the subsector, revival rate, or what we call mortality rate, we multiply and give you the credit. So I think it's a very unique program. First time we have been very calibrated and cautious because that's our business, because we have to protect our capital, but we have been able to find a way to provide incremental credit. So we launched that on 1st of July, and we are seeing obviously that's why I say there is a lack of self assessment. So our approval rate is only 25% because a lot of borrower who in our assessment would not have the same survival rate, but they want incremental credit, right? So obviously we cannot do. So this program is for sustainability. If I give you the money, this money would help you to sustain and then grow later, is the program. So this is what we are doing, and we are very deeply focused. Our aim is to reach 5 million small and micro businesses in India, and help and support them. We don't know how much of some platform like yours would help us, and we are reaching out to multiple sets that please, at least we are as an institution ready to do it in a method. So please use.
I'm
You are,
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah, my
yeah.
screen froze for a second. I'm really sorry. So yeah, it is an absolutely wonderful initiative. And on similar lines, my next question would be to Mr. Rahul. So one of the biggest needs for SMEs is working capital at this moment. And Liftfin being a tech-enabled supply chain finance-focused NBFC, so how is Liftfin enabling supply chain financing for such SMEs?
I think that has been the perennial question for all SMEs, because the reason why they are SMEs is because the promoters or the owners of the businesses don't have sufficient capital to put up. They probably have some, but not too much. They have some assets, the shop that they have is owned, or they have a own house or something. So once they put their own capital and they've put, and taken loans from banks by pledging their assets, that is probably good enough to start the business. But how do you actually, manage to buy goods? And that's the working capital, like you buy, you store, you sell at a profit, you pay it back, and then you take it again. That's the whole cycle that goes on. Now that is where the problem is, because if they go to a bank, the bank says, "Sure, I'll give you working capital. What's the collateral?" The collateral is all gone because they've taken term loans to get some of the basic things that they need to start the business. So there is no working capital. So when they buy goods, then they buy it on credit. Now, when they buy it on credit, they are, typically in trade, if you pay upfront, then you get a cash discount. If you take it on credit, you don't get a cash discount. And then you have to wait until you sell it. If there is any delay, that only starts hitting your profitability. Now, what lenders like Lifin do is that we actually tie up with the manufacturer. So that's the anchor for us. And then we provide funding to their dealers and distributors or their suppliers. We do both sides of it with no collateral required from the actual borrower. But yeah, we take some sort of support from the manufacturer. Now it makes sense for everybody because one, everybody's invested in this whole thing. The manufacturer is invested. The distributor or dealer is also, he's also got capital there, and we've also put in money. So everybody has a stake in that tripartite thing that we are doing. But also everybody has to win. So if you look at it from the manufacturer's viewpoint, today he was giving credit of 100 rupees to every distributor. Now we come in and we say, we will provide the credit. You give us, some sort of a cover of, let's say, 10%. So now suddenly he doesn't need to put in 100 rupees. He needs to keep in only 10 rupees. We provide the 90 rupees for him, but we pay him on day one. So on behalf of the buyer. So the buyer now can take the cash discount. Part of that cash discount comes to us as interest, but he still earns a little bit on that. And that is the buffer that he gets, so that in case there is a delay in sales and all that, he still can do that. Or if he sells on time, that's profit for him. Everybody sort of wins in this whole process. So that is the way we are trying to help working capital to either the underbanked or the unbanked sector in India, which is a large part of the 29% that Mr. Nath said, SMEs. That is the core problem. You don't need too much money to start the business, but if you have very little, but you want to, work hard and grow your business, or whether selling or manufacturing something, working capital is critical. If you don't have assets, you really can't do it unless there are players like us who are providing that kind of financing, and that's what we do.
Right. My next question would be so with digital technology transforming every sector of India's economy at this moment, it is essential that we ensure our SMEs make the most of such digital technologies to improve operations. Now, what is the use of technology to enable a digital infrastructure for seamless lending during this crisis?
So, Rahul, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I think part of that question has been answered already, but let me just take it and to add on to what has been said earlier. So today, from our platform, like I said, we work through an app. So the manufacturer raises the invoice. The invoice goes through our app to the distributor. He accepts the invoice. He's got the goods and he accepts the invoice. And on his behalf, we pay the manufacturer. And now he has whatever 30, 60, 90, 120 days that is set for his kind of product. He has that much time to pay us back. So, in this whole process, what is happening is he's a distributor, right? He has retailers that are further down the chain. Nobody knows what is happening between him and the distributor. If that is known, everything can be planned even better, right? The whole distribution chain can be planned better. So what we are trying to do is, together with our app now, there are enough accounting packages available. We are integrating an accounting package in our technology, which will be provided free of cost to the distributor, which means that when he sells to his retailers, he is going through that system. Right now, the mindset has to change, right? So there's no cash business anymore. There's no avoiding tax and avoiding GST, right? You have to do it this way. So the moment you do it this way, that data is captured and is also provided to the manufacturer. The whole planning cycle goes in a much better way, which makes it much more efficient, right? The Japanese, I think, did this thing about just in time, God knows how many years ago. But we are sort of trying to get there now, where you can really plan. It helps everybody in the chain. The manufacturer then can plan his purchases of raw material to be able to manufacture on time and go on. So that's a value-added services that comes for everybody. Also, it will probably help in credit assessment a little while when you have a little more data, and this is adopted for a while. is that you actually know whether the distributor is selling all his goods to that guy or not. You can then tend to give him higher limits, which means he can grow his business. You have another data point on which you can assess his credit worthiness, and his intent can be very easily checked from there. So those are the kind of things that we're adding up.
I would add few small things, right? Which the audience which is here, and if they are small businesses. To give you an example, we, like Rahul said, we don't necessarily need your balance sheet, your income tax return, and so on and so forth, right? Because one of our program of the credit assessment is just look at the banking data, right? So if I take your 12 months of banking, I can simply take the debit. System does it, we don't have to do it physically. When we take the debit on one side, credit on one side, and we take out what is the net margin and apply industry margin, and basis that you provide the credit. Very good, excellent thing, very simple. We have seen in our journey of servicing more than 7,500 SME borrowers that 99% of them hesitate in giving access to their bank account through an OTP methodology. So all banks provide this facility wherein on our platform, you can give our system straight access to your bank account, and we cannot transact. We will just pull the banking information and then we'll run our system on that and give you an in principle approval, right? It is the inertia. An alternative, if you are uncomfortable with that, you take your bank statement, scan it, and upload in the system. Our system convert the scanned document into digitized form and do the same calculation. But obviously there is always error, right? Every bank has a different format. There is always error of physical document being scanned and then converted into digital, right? And that's why there is always a 20 to 40% curation you have to do, right? Somebody has to call, understand what it is, right? So it's simple adoption of SME now understanding that it's no problem in giving access to your bank statement through bank, wherein we just get the digitized data and we'll give you credit on that basis. Why there should be a worry about it? It's the mindset. Same with the GST, right? We pull the turnover data, which is most authenticated through GST, wherein you get an OTP. Now, one of the very simple thing is that in GST, most of the time in SME, the owner's mobile number is registered on the GSTN portal, but the credit work will be done by the accountant. Now, when he's filing and logging the application, the OTP would go to the promoter and he will not provide it because he's busy in something else, right? So as simple as this, that if your accountant is one who is dealing with the GST, get his mobile number registered on GST portal so that he can allow the access to the GST portal and we can pull the data. These things look very small, but actually these are the things wherein small business have to think that how do I make my own process very efficient, right? How do I provide access to information? You have to give comfort to the lender who is willing to lend you in difficult time. You have to give the comfort of information and data, and you have to do it digitally, right? And that's, I think, so is key. So not only your financial accounts, right? Because most of the lender in the SME space do lending on the basis of number of customer coming in, the inventory, the stocks, the goods, not many parameter. But if you don't have the same set of information available in a digitized form, it becomes hard. You become, say, disincentive, and it's harder to do that credit. So all the small businesses, and it's my, request to them, think of small steps and digitize your process. That would enable more credit, more capital to you, and would help you to grow and survive and grow.
Right. So following up on the same, this is the most critical question in every SME business owner's mind, which is how to undergo the reassessment of credit model to be more cautious, especially amid COVID-19.
Sorry, you just broke off. Can you repeat the question?
Okay. I said, so the question is how to undergo the reassessment of the credit model to be more cautious amid COVID-19.
So I think so. I explained that in our Sanjeevani program, right? So I would let Rahul respond to that.
Yeah, I think we've more or less covered this point. So what I was just saying on the earlier question, adding that accounting module and all that. These are all the ways that you're doing to be able to change your credit model. Anyway, our credit models are very different from traditional lenders. We don't look at assets, we don't look at balance sheets, because if I'm not getting security from you, I don't really need to see that. It's the whole cash flow. So the business you're doing with your manufacturer, your GST data, your bank statements, your CIBIL data. I mean, if we have access to that data, we probably know, what's happening there, and that is how you do it. So it was already a very lean and very focused credit approach. But this accounting thing is something that we feel is even better now to start looking at as an add-on to the other 3 or 4 things that we look at, because over a period of time, that track record that is built up will actually help. And there are other ways. Today, the retailer pays the distributor back, and then the distributor pays us back. Why not set in a process where the retailer on his behalf actually pays directly to us? So there is no way that the money can go anywhere else. So these are multiple discussions that are going on. And I must say, I'm actually quite surprised. We did a test run of this, some of these thoughts with about 40, 45 MSMEs. And they were actually very receptive to this idea. Because if the money, so if you've sold 10 pieces to a retailer, now the retailer will wait until he sells all the 10 pieces and then pay the distributor back. But if he had sold 5 and if he had paid then, and that money had come back to the lender, which is us, the interest component would have been lower, right? You just sat on the money. And the tendency then to do something else with that money is very high. So, but if you pay me back, as you're paying, you pay directly into his account, which is with us, his loan actually starts going down, the interest cost keeps coming down. So those are the kind of things that we are discussing, and people seem to be receptive. They were not before COVID, but they are now.
Right.
One more thing I would like to add, actually two. One, small businesses and their entrepreneurs don't differentiate between the business and the personal asset. And one of the core problem in lending to small businesses, where because you see what we call fund diversion, right? When my things are good, I am generating profitability, I would borrow in the business and I'll take the money and go and buy a property, right? Or buy a big car or something, right? I think so that actually creates a lot of nervousness among lenders, and they don't like to do that because they just don't know whether you are using the money for business, because lenders take risk on your business operation, right? So first and foremost, post COVID, at least all SMEs are requested not to do that. If you want to buy personal asset, please take the profit share back to yourself from your business and use for that, right? Don't do it from the business. That's one. Second is also, like a lender is stepping up in providing the support. SMEs, if the entrepreneur of an SME has real belief in his business, he think he will survive and grow. If he has an additional collateral which he can offer, provide for that and don't be hesitant, because lenders get more comfort when you have a collateral. If you don't have it, obviously that's fine, but if you have it, don't just hold it back to yourself because in the past you have not given it up.
Yeah, and I think for SMEs, for everybody actually, you should understand that something that we've always thought of assets, like buying a second house or a property to rent out because you're going to earn more money on it when it goes up, or buying a car which you don't need. It is actually not an asset. It could very well, the car is definitely a liability. But additional property, because you thought it will grow multifold, can actually become also a liability. So put in money where it's really required. Especially in these uncertain times, you should focus on what you want to do.
Absolutely. So now, since we are running very short of time, so I would just like to take up the last question for the session. And this is one question that we are asked in whichever webinar that we do from the start, from April. We have been asked this at every single webinar, which is in everybody's mind. So the question is, what are the industries that are thriving and have a great future ahead, whereas the industries that need to rethink their business model for the times ahead? What would you what is your personal opinion on that?
I can take a short look. On a longer run, I think so, as India would come back to normalcy. Most of the sector and subsector which are consumer driven economy would go back to normalcy and grow. So it is more of relativity of time, right? So it is not that a country like India, hospitality, fine dining and restaurant would die forever. They will just take much more time to come and revive back, right? In our sectoral view, sectors like foods and beverages, chemical, electrical equipment manufacturing, little bit of auto component, in which is in two-wheeler segment, education actually, because we are seeing are actually would get revived much faster than what others are, right? For example, in healthcare, theoretically you should believe that because there is a pandemic and it's a health crisis, healthcare should do well, but that's not true actually. Healthcare is suffering big time because I'm no longer going to an hospital or an OPD clinic because I'm scared of getting COVID out of that place, right? So they will take much longer period of time. Hospitality, certain portion of hospitality would take much longer period of time. So that's our view.
Yeah, I think I've already answered that question. You need to figure out what is essential and what is discretionary under the current scenario. That will probably give everybody the answer on that.
Wonderful. So with this, I think we'll just wrap up the session. We have been exact on time, and we're really sorry to all the attendees. We won't be able to take up the Q&As, but I tried to keep up all the questions that have already been asked by all the attendees. So we really hope that we covered almost all of them as well. At the end, I would just like to thank Mr. Nath and Mr. Rahul. Thank you so much for your precious time and for your wonderful insights and being so patient while answering each and every question. It was absolutely wonderful having you both over here.
And some of the questions for which you have the email ID, you can forward to us, and our teams will be happy to respond to those people directly as well.
Wonderful. So to all the attendees, if you want to get in touch with the UGRO or the LiftFin team, please make sure that you get in touch with me, and I'll make sure that I pass on the message, and we would be very happy to take on any queries, anything that you would like to ask about that. So Mr. Nath, Mr. Rahul, thank you so much once again. Anything you would like to say in the end?
No, I think so. Yes, just stay safe. What I have said that look, obviously this pandemic is very serious. We have to be all very careful. But obviously we have to also live life. So it is a choice between life and livelihood. Life always takes precedence, but livelihood also lead to the sustainability of life. So you should not stop doing what you guys are doing. Be entrepreneurial and find new ways to survive and succeed. And that's why I request we are doing that. Everyone should do that. And like everything come to an end, we are very hopeful this would also come to an end.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much once again. It was a pleasure having you. And thank you to all our attendees for being a part of this. We'll see you next time with episode 3 of the SME series. Until then, please stay safe. Thank you so much.